The quiet revolution is all around us, but we hardly notice it. Like an aroma or a scent, we are only vaguely aware of it. Whenever we give a gift at Christmas or speak of Santa Claus, the influence of the quiet revolution and the one who started it is there. But is there really a Santa Claus or a St. Nicholas? The answer may surprise you. In 1947, a Christmas comedy drama film was released by 20th Century Fox called The Miracle on 34th Street. The story takes place between Thanksgiving and Christmas in New York City and focuses on the effect of a department store Santa Claus who claims to be the real Santa. The film has become a perpetual Christmas favorite. The Miracle on 34th Street won 3 Academy Awards. In 2005, the film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress, being called, quote, culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant, unquote. The plot runs like this. On the morning of Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, the man playing Santa Claus was sick. An old man named Kris Kringle discovers this and indignantly complains to the event director. Noticing that Kris resembles Santa Claus, Doris persuades Kris to play Santa in the parade himself. Kris is well received and is subsequently hired to play Santa at Macy's New York City store on 34th Street. The toy department head, Mr. Shellhammer, instructs Kris to recommend overstocked items to undecided shoppers. Instead, Kris directs a woman to another store to fulfill her son's Christmas request. Impressed, the woman informs Shellhammer that she will become a loyal Macy's customer. Attorney Fred Gailey, who is Doris's neighbor, takes Doris's daughter Susan to see Santa. After hearing Kris speak Dutch to an orphaned girl from the Netherlands, Susan is amazed. Doris, who has raised Susan not to believe in fairy tales like Santa Claus, asks Kris to tell Susan the truth about Santa Claus. But Kris insists that he really is Santa Claus. The story goes back and forth about whether Kris Kringle is really Santa Claus. Eventually, it ends up in court where Kris Kringle's defense attorney brings in a mountain of letters from the U.S. Post Department office addressed to Santa Claus. In a heartwarming scene, the judge rules that there really is a Santa Claus, and Kris Kringle is Santa Claus. But there's a story behind the legend. St. Nicholas of Myra was born in the 4th century in present-day Turkey. He was an early Christian bishop, and his legendary habit of secret gift-giving gave rise to the folklore of Santa Claus. He was said to have been born of wealthy Christian parents. We don't know how, but at a young age he became a follower of the Quiet Revolution. Someone must have told him about the leader of the Quiet Revolution, and that by believing he too could be part of that revolution. Perhaps it was his parents. These were turbulent and violent times that Nicholas lived in. Perhaps he remembered the words of the pagan thinker Epictetus from the 1st century, who said, quote, "While the emperor may give peace from war on land and sea, he is unable to give peace from passion, grief, and envy. He cannot give peace of heart, which men yearn for more even than outward peace." Unquote. The same words are true today. We may have peace on earth and peace with our neighbor, but only the leader of the Quiet Revolution can give us peace in our hearts. Nicholas heard the words of the great revolutionary, and the Spirit of God worked in his heart and he believed. No one can become part of his kingdom unless the Spirit first works in his heart. We cannot by ourselves choose to be part of his revolution. Those in the quiet revolution are only those who the leader has called to himself. If you feel the Spirit calling you to be part of the revolutionary family, do not turn away. Come and be part of the quiet revolution that starts first in your heart as you believe in him. After his parents died from an epidemic, Nicholas is said to have distributed their wealth to the poor. He knew that the revolution would change the way everything was done, even helping others. He remembered that the leader of the revolution said, "Behold, I am making everything new." He remembered that the leader of the revolution also said, "Watch out. Don't do your good deeds publicly to be admired by others, for you will lose the reward from your Father in heaven." When you give someone in need, don't do it as the hypocrites do, blowing trumpets in the synagogues and streets to call attention to their acts of charity. I tell you the truth, they have received all the reward they will ever get. But when you give to someone in need, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Give your gifts in private, and your Father who sees everything will reward you. In his most famous exploit, Nicholas heard of a devout man who had once been wealthy but had lost all of his money. The man could not afford proper dowries for his 3 daughters. This meant that they would remain unmarried and probably, in the absence of any other possible employment, be sold. Nicholas decided to help them, but being too modest to help the family in public, or to save them the humiliation of accepting charity, he went to the house under the cover of night and threw a purse filled with gold coins through the window opening into the house. The father immediately arranged a marriage for his first daughter, and after her wedding, Nicholas threw a second bag of gold through the same window late at night. After the second daughter was married, the father stayed awake for at least 2 more nights and caught St. Nicholas in the same act of charity towards the third daughter. The father fell to his knees, thanking him, and Nicholas ordered him not to tell anyone about the gifts. This is the most well-known story of many that show the generosity of Nicholas, later sainted to be Saint Nicholas. He gave generously and anonymously by throwing bags of money through windows, yes, and even down chimneys, hence the legend that Santa Claus comes down the chimney on Christmas Eve. But St. Nicholas was more than just a generous leader of the revolution. He even spent time in prison for his faith. One of the most gripping stories occurs about St. Nicholas was late in life. Nicholas, now 70 years old, was serving as the Bishop of Myra in modern-day Turkey. One day, Nicholas received an urgent report that Eustaces, the governor of the region, was about to execute 3 innocent men. Nicholas set off at a brisk pace for the Praetorium or palace to speak with Eustaces. Nicholas suspected foul play, as Eustaces was known to be corrupt and easily bribed. While en route, Nicholas was stopped and informed that the convicts had already been moved to the place of beheading. The concerned bishop wheeled around and took off at a dead run in the opposite direction. He burst into the plaza to find the condemned men on their knees, hands tied behind their backs, faces covered with linen cloths. These men had given themselves up for dead. Nicholas forced his way through the crowd of wide-eyed gawkers and yanked the sword from the executioner and threw it to the ground. Dramatically, he untied the prisoners' hands and set them free. Then he marched off to find the governor, Eustaces, in order to chastise him for this miscarriage of justice, condemning innocent citizens without a proper trial. At that time, as a local bishop of the church, Nicholas had the constitutional right to intervene in legal matters like this. Back at the palace, Nicholas broke down the door. He burst in, and a sentinel hurried off to inform the governor of his arrival. Eustace, trying to maintain his composure, greeted Nicholas with deference and compliments. Bishop Nicholas was not amused. He stopped the governor in mid-sentence and accused him of being a thief and an enemy of God, calling him sacrilegious, bloodthirsty, and unjust. According to one historical account, Nicholas told Eustace, "You who had the cruel intent to kill innocent people, since you committed this kind of wickedness, I cannot have any respect for you. God is reserving for the unjust a tortured life. He knows how your government works and how this province allows looting and killing men against the law and without trial for deadly greed and gain." Eustace withered under the assault. He fell to his knees and begged for forgiveness. Here we see a different side of Nicholas that was conveyed by other stories about him too, that he was fiery and he was brave. So when you think of Santa Claus in a lawn or in a store or in a picture, remember that the legend really has a real person behind it. St. Nicholas was a real person. He was an orphan, and he was a part of the greatest revolution the world has ever seen. His influence has spread throughout the world, even in our own day. And maybe, just maybe, you can be part of that revolution too. Not by being good enough, but by admitting that you're not good enough. For those are the only ones that the leader of the great revolution will accept.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.